Hey, this is John Lee Dumas, the founder and host of Entrepreneurs on Fire. And if you're wanting to learn how to embrace change and navigate through disruption as a leader, then listen to the Leadership is Changing podcast with my good friend, Denis Gianoutsos. He's prepared to ignite.
Welcome to Leadership is Changing. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change. This is taking your leadership to another level by finding the balance between executive excellence and personal well-being through stories that inspire real change. It's time to adapt in our fast-moving world when leadership is changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos.
I am in Bonn, Germany, the former capital of Western Germany, and we are in a wonderful region here with the Rhine, hills, wineries. The weather is mixed, but the trees are starting to blossom, so it's the best time of the year here.
Yeah, beautiful. So Europe going into it is in spring, and it's beautiful. And the Rhine River area, just beautiful place to be. So very lucky, very fortunate indeed to be there. Now, Hermann, I've given a little bit of an introduction to your background. Tell me, is there anything else you'd like to share about your background?
I grew up in a small village on a farm, and that was in the 50s. It was like the Middle Ages. So we had no machines on our farm, all was manual labor. But I still have a very good memory of that time. Then I studied in my first life. I was a professor for 15 years. And then I founded a consulting company, which you mentioned, Simon-Kucher Partners, and led that company for the next 15 years. So that is basically my career. Another important period was my time in the Air Force. Originally, I wanted to become a starfighter pilot, which was the fighter plane of the German Air Force in the Cold War. But I failed due to eye weakness. Still, I joined the Air Force, and that was important as an experience as a young leader. I will come back to that.
Very good. And I see that Simon-Kucher and Partners, that the organization, the main area is probably focuses on several areas, but one of them is around pricing consultancy. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, we are the global leader in price consulting with 700 people, as you mentioned. And pricing, price theory, price management was my research topic during my time as a professor. And I always had the ambition to apply the insights, the models, not just to develop theory. And so we founded the company. We were the innovators, the pioneer in this field. And this is the foundation for our global market leadership today.
Yeah, and you and I were having a little bit of a chat. Now, we're not going to say what the number is, but I just think that you and I, both in our ages and our careers, both have left the corporate world to go and start our own businesses very late in our corporate life. What was that transition for you like?
I once had a discussion with my wife. My wife was a teacher, also tenured for life, and I was a life tenured professor. We both gave up our secure jobs and founded companies. My wife founded a company in the media sector, I in consulting. And we were asking ourselves, why did we do that? Nobody understood that. We both come from self-employed parents. My father, an independent free farmer, and my wife's father had a little factory. And the answer was, we did not want to have a boss above us. If you do not want to have a boss above you, you must become a leader. You must stand on your own feet. I think that is the ultimate motivation why I became a leader.
Yeah, me too. But both of us been in leadership roles, of course, in the corporate world, but then to go and stand on your own 2 feet as well and to defend for yourself, go and build businesses while also employing others, bringing people into our team, that's just really great leadership. And I just think it's a wonderful thing too. So that's pretty exciting. Now, my question for you here, Hermann, is how did you get into leadership?
It started actually in the small village. In our neighborhood, we had a gang of 6 boys about my age, but I was the oldest and the tallest, and I was the natural leader of this gang. The second stage of leadership development was during my time in the Air Force. That was at the heat of the Cold War, partially comparable to to what we experience today in Europe. In 1968, the Russians marched into Czechoslovakia. So there was an invasion of the Russians into Czechoslovakia. And I was in a bomber wing of the German Air Force, which had only one mission: to drop nuclear bombs on certain targets on the other side of the Iron Curtain. And we had permanent NATO alarms. I have seen the nuclear bomb many times, and they were very difficult situations. And I was a young officer on duty and had to cope with these situations. This is an experience which a normal person in private life cannot experience. And the third phase of learning leadership was during my study times when I was a student representative and gave speeches in front of 100 students. That was after 68. It was turmoil, the student uprising in Paris, etc. So I think these were three formative periods for my own leadership capabilities.
Yeah, and starting at a very young age with the gang of 6, as you called it. That's wonderful to you.
Yeah, you learn it as a child in the sports team, as in the scouts group, or whatever the group is you are dealing with.
Yeah, interesting how that all is and how that all works. Wow. Now tell me, this person can be from history or can be alive. Who's your favorite leader and why?
I do not have one favorite leader, but I would name three. Marvin Bauer, the founder of McKinsey. McKinsey himself, he died 3 years after the company was founded in 1932. And Marvin Bauer is the person who created McKinsey, the culture, the spirit, etc. The second is Joseph Cardinal Höffner, who was one of the most influential figures in the Catholic Church in Cologne. And the third person is Mickey Lee. She is a granddaughter of the founder of Samsung, and she founded her own company, CJ Group, which now has a revenue of $26 billion. I met these three persons and they left a very strong impression on me. But I would also describe a group of leaders as role models. These are the leaders of the hidden champions. The hidden champions are mid-sized, unknown global market leaders. And I have written a couple of books about them. The newest one is coming out in May, Hidden Champions in the Chinese Century. And these leaders, often founders, they deeply impressed me. And they're characterized by certain traits which are somewhat unique.
Today, I'm in the most beautiful city. For me, it is most beautiful Sydney, Australia. It's sunny today after days of the heavy bombardment of the rain and the storms, Sydney.
Yeah. See, I think this year, well, the summer that we've just had is just finished. I think New Zealand's had the Australian summer because we've had a brilliant summer and where you've had a lot of rain, although you've needed some rain, some water, but not as much as you've got. It's ridiculous. It's been huge.
It is that I was tempted to go into the bookstore to purchase the Noah Ark for Dummies, honestly, because I've never saw so much rain in my life. And for the listeners, I don't want to take too much time. I've been in England several times, in Ireland and Scotland. I had a feeling that I was waking up in the middle of the Scotland with the song Cry Me a River because it was very depressing. But we survived. We have the nice sunny day today in Sydney.
Did you find the book, How to Build a Noah's Ark for Dummies?
No, but I certainly want to make the one because for the next rains coming across. Because look, when I come to Australia in 98 in November, I fall in love with that city immediately, Dennis. And I realized after several days, a little bit about culture, people behavior, and I understood that people, they don't understand how lucky they are in this country, including New Zealand. From the environment I'm coming from, sunny and beautiful weather. It's like people complaining of winter here. Like you go in Europe and it's a winter, minus 20 degrees, and then you can see the winter lights. But yeah, look, Sydney, it's the most beautiful city for me. And that's where I'm currently living, working, running my business.
I think it's actually a very good point you bring up there too, though. I think for a lot of our listeners, they may be in situations in their life and their business and the roles that they do as leaders whereby they might be whinging or complaining about things. And sometimes we just need to step back and take stock of where we are and understand what we've got in our hands and maybe be a little bit grateful as well. Don't get me wrong, there will be people
Yes.
in some situations that do need to change, but it's pretty interesting how we see that today and how people need to be a little bit grateful for everything they've got.
That's correct. And I agree with you. Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Now, we've given you, the listeners, a little bit of a brief background about you. Tell us a little bit more about the investigative questioning or interrogation work that you do.
My business Insight Intelligence has been formed in 2010, and it was a product of desire, dreaming, imagination. I want to have my own business, but then become necessity as 2009 was GFC, and world around me collapsed. So that was a unique opportunity. If I don't do now, I'm never going to do it. And I built the 3 pillars on my business. Those 3 pillars starts with letter F. F number 1, it's a fear. Fear of losing money, fear of losing reputation. Second F, it's fight. We fight for our clients against the fraud, criminal activity, fraudulent claims, and there is a freedom that our clients can enjoy their work without interruptions and without taking extra time or spending more money on investigative internal matters or external matters. And I always come back to this point, Dennis. You know that feeling in your life when someone has taken advantage of you. And that's where we are stepping to sort out this issue. So the business is built around factual investigations, which we're providing is a core of the business to the insurance companies, banking sector, corporations as well, regardless is internal theft, internal fraud, external theft, fraud, espionage, where I'm stepping aside. Then we have a surveillance investigation, and that's go globally. Most of the cases doesn't start only in Australia and finish in Australia. Sometimes they go beyond the borders. And as the COVID was one of the events, 100 years, I would say, where the surveillance was being basically interrupted, that type of investigation, because of the limitations of the moments. Then we have the forensic investigations. That's a forensic accounting and forensic psychology. Forensic accounting, it is when we assist the clients to our employees here in the office to go through the potential fraud by their business partners or their employees or their accountants. And in hindsight, that's fun forensics. It's forensic psychology. I'm very grateful that I have that person, Dr. Debbie Coloros. She's one of the very few people with PhD in psychological profiling, geographical psychological profiling, and determining criminal activities by geographical location. So this is the core of our business, Dennis.
Yeah, that's fascinating stuff that you're sharing there. Must be really interesting work to do.
It is, because it has, like we all, information, it's the most valuable commodity in business. We always acquiring informations, either visually, verbally, orally, name it. Or sometimes we're being provided informations and we don't believe their validity or their reliability. So that's where we're stepping in. So information is our business. Information is.
So if one of our listeners right now is listening to something and they can see that there's probably some fraud happening, whether it's internally or from external sources or something like that happening, in other words, in your words, somebody taking advantage of them, what should they be doing right now? What's probably one thing or two things they should be thinking about before engaging someone like yourself?
First of all, they need to understand it's going to happen. It's not when or how, but it will happen. Every business, it becomes the victim. We can put all policy procedures in place and we can have the leadership is that in charge. Leadership must understand the weaknesses and potential threats. Threats are rising on hourly rate because there's a new method under the fraudsters. So they need to think how to investigate this matter and that investigation to become the tool to implement the policy procedures, because the investigation, when it ends and you find the perpetrator, you realize that you can confirm some type of fraudulent activity or criminal activity, implement your policy procedures. How this investigation going to benefit to my company, because they're going to learn the lesson from this investigation. An investigation clearly outlined modus operandi of the fraud. And that gives you indication how to change some policy procedures or employments or protecting the data, protecting information, money, and so on. So that's the first thing, how to utilize this investigation or potential fraud to benefit on a longer run.
Good point. Okay. There you go, listeners. You've heard that already, so that's good. There's some good tips there. Now, Mario, how did you get into leadership?
I never envisaged to gonna be the leader because I was growing up in communism and I was being mustered to become the officer of the Yugoslav People Army. So there's no leadership in this. It's a hardcore communist type of army, and you're listening to Politburo and the communist elite, and that's what the decision making is happening. What it changed, it's 1991. The civil war started in ex-Yugoslavia. We fought for the democracy. To translate democracy for me was a Coke and rock and roll and McDonald's. I didn't even know what a democracy means because that word was there being used in communism, because communism is the best. So what happened after a few weeks in the war, like I was being assigned several people to I lead in combat, and I was almost 19 years old, not even 19 years old. And how did I learn about leadership? Leadership, it is not something as a title which entitles you to show other people how great you are. If you don't lead by example, you're not a leader. That's what I learned. And for me, it was always been demanded that I need to, when I lead my troops, which they grow substantially with the years of my service, and as well every type of job in military, because the first I started in the war, and several years later I was in security intelligence services, and then I was being transferred into diplomatic intelligence. So the leadership is not that I chose leadership, they chose me. And when I asked, why do you choose me? They told me people like you. And I said, okay, that's a prerequisite. They said, no, but people like you the way how you're protecting them. So I was very conscious that my actions and my whatever I demanding from everybody behind me or around me or under me, whatever you want to call this, I need to lead by my example. And there was no moment in my life that I didn't want to relinquish leadership. That is honest, because it's a high responsibility. And the one thing what I learned on these practical courses of leadership, where you are being taught all the psychological values of the leadership and how to team up with the people and everything else, that I come in a position where I need to know 400 people individually how they feel. And it looks good on a paper, but when I realized that I become everybody the beacon in darkness, that whatever I say, they will do it. Now, when you transfer this into corporate world, it was a different, because in corporate world, the leadership it's being valued differently, and as well the losses being measured in dollar sign rather than in lives. And so leadership is not something I chose; they chose me because of my determination to protect those who follow me. That was the number one, and equally to reach objectives and key objectives being put in front of me along with other officers and so on. And I had some heated arguments in my life with the people who believe are leaders by explaining and rationalizing things, why things should not be done, because it's going to cause them more damage than the benefits. And that's the way how I learn as well from elder and the people behind me. So when you put people who follows you and people you follow, you find the golden middle, right? It's a golden rule. You find the middle ground and then you become the proper leader.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Leadership is Changing with your host, Denis Gianoutsos. Each week, we and our guests provide information and insights through exploring leading change, inspiring executives and leaders to adapt and lead a bigger game in a fast-moving world.